We had him on a couple weeks ago, and it was a terrific spot, getting a sense of how the Niners are, I guess, for the lack of a better phrase, processing what happened. David Lombardi, who covers the team for The Athletic, is back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, David?
Hey, Rich. How are you?
How best to describe how the Niners are processing everything?
Well, I'm about to head down to Santa Clara here from San Francisco to check out the locker clean out, talk to a lot of the guys for the last time technically this season. But I was in the locker room in Vegas right after that game, and I'd never been in a more devastated locker room. And that's saying something because I've covered this team for several years now. And boy, the scars that they have accumulated starting in Super Bowl 54 when they lost to the Chiefs in Miami, continuing with the NFC Championship game against the Rams to end the 2021 season, and then obviously the Purdy injury game against the Eagles in 2022. That's a lot of scars, and I would say that what happened in Super Bowl 58 a couple days ago in Vegas was the most painful one. You saw Christian McCaffrey look like a ghost at his locker, just pale. It wasn't moving for a long time. Trent Williams was just shaking his head. A lot of guys, just their eyes welling with tears. You really realize when you're that close to a team this far into a season, this far into a journey, when they lose in that type of fashion, you realize how much has been invested in it. And it is one of those situations where, their hearts got ripped out, right? And it's going to be a long trip trying to get back up to the top of the mountain. And the 49ers, I think they're going to probably have to try to invoke some of their franchise history here. You look at the 1990 49ers, 92, 93, where they lost to the Giants and the Cowboys twice in a row in the NFC Championship game. You look at those years and realize they got back up to the top in 94. It's going to take something similar from these 49ers. It's going to take a similar overcoming of devastation to try to, circle the wagons and get back up to the top again. But right now with the 49ers, it's still very, very raw.
It seems raw on Brandon Auk's Instagram feed as well. It seemed that he was posting some stuff about don't forget who brought you here. So how do you interpret that, David?
Well, it's going to be interesting heading into the locker room today, speaking with these guys for the first time, because there has been some stuff on social media. A couple of their offensive linemen were going back and forth, and then they apologized to each other over one of the pass protection breakdowns, the key one, actually, in overtime. I've seen some of the stuff from Brandon Auk. I honestly don't know what exactly the meaning of that stuff is, because I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody yet. Yesterday was travel day from Las Vegas. So I think that, you can expect your fair share of offseason drama again with the 49ers. We saw some of the stuff with Deebo Samuel a couple years ago when he was up for a new contract. Brandon Auk is entering his fifth-year option this season. So it's a similar situation as Nick Bosa last offseason, as far as, you've got to figure out a way to keep your A-listers around if you're the 49ers. And that doesn't come cheap. And obviously, this team is up against the salary cap. Thankfully for them, they carry over $38 million from last season due to some restructures. So they're going to be able to play financial Tetris to keep their core around. But Brandon Auk is definitely part of the core following his all-pro performance this season. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how quickly they can get this done, or if it's going to drag out throughout the entire offseason.
Financial Tetris. I love that. That's an excellent. Chris, write that down. That sounds like a very good fantasy
really
team
good.
right
like
there. And I know
that
it's a great avatar, dropping pieces. Very good. So when it's all said and done, what do you think, is the general sense of Kyle Shanahan's future, right? I mean, he's got a couple years left on a contract. They love him, right? I mean, the owner loves him, and the general manager and him are tight. And the question, I mean, they win. They just can't get past Mahomes. That's basically it, right? That's the sense.
In essence, that is it. They've lost to Mahomes twice for all the marbles in the Super Bowl. But again, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, as you just alluded to, they have built something really impressive in San Francisco. They inherited a team that might have had the worst roster in the NFL in 2017. And since then, they've been to, 4 NFC championship games and 2 Super Bowls. And now all that's left is kicking that door down and making it the whole way. It took Andy Reid, 20-plus seasons to win a Super Bowl, and he didn't do it with his first franchise. The 49ers certainly hope this story goes differently, that Kyle Shanahan will win this Super Bowl at some point before year 10 and with their franchise, not with another team. It is unquestionably a devastating loss and a string of devastating losses for the 49ers. But one thing I will say is that they have built the organizational resilience to come back from Super Bowl 54 4 years ago, to come back from that 2021 NFC Championship game and from that Eagles NFC Championship game and that Purdy injury last year to deliver what they did this season. And that in and of itself, I think, is really notable and worth saying right now, because they already have demonstrated that resilience. I think that's one reason why they already are betting favorites to win the Super Bowl next season. I think it's probably too early for 49ers fans to hear that. There's going to be a lot of raw, visceral pain that's probably going to last up until the training camp, up until they see the team playing again this next season. But within the larger objective context of things, if we zoom out, they already have a documented track record of bouncing back with the culture that Shanahan and John Lynch have built, and I think that they're going to be right back in the mix next year. And that's all you can do. It's a life lesson as well, right? Whenever you get punched in the gut, the only thing you can really do is pick back up and keep on chopping wood. And I think that's what the 49ers are going to be preaching this offseason.
The Athletics' David Lombardi covers the 49ers getting set to meet with the team later on, and the rest of the media in the post-mortem locker room today right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So the conversation surrounding Kyle Shanahan's decision to keep the ball to start overtime eventually cascaded into the locker room after the game, where players said they didn't really know the rule. And, that's sparked a debate, David, between, well, the play calling doesn't matter when the players don't know the rule. And then the other side of it is, well, there's just a general sense of confidence in the play calling and just confidence in yourselves and what to do if everybody knows what the hell the rules are. So where does this conversation land for you?
Well, it would have been really, really interesting had they scored a touchdown. I'll tell you that, at the start of overtime, because under the old rules, right, a touchdown with the first possession would have meant the Super Bowl would have been over. So I'm not really sure what would have happened, but obviously would have been fascinating to see. As you just alluded to, I don't think it changed how the players were playing. Now people are questioning, well, did Kyle Shanahan call this appropriately by wanting the ball first? I think all things even, you definitely want the ball second, because you have that rebuttal shot and you have a guaranteed 4 downs if you need them on that rebuttal shot, right? Like Patrick Mahomes did when he was driving downfield when they were down by 3. That being said, I think that this situation and this decision was a little bit more complicated just by virtue of how regulation ended. The 49ers were on defense when regulation ended, and they were not only gassed after Mahomes had driven down the field to set up the field goal to tie the game, but on the second to last play, they lost 2 defensive backs. They lost Jair Brown and they lost Diamador Lenore. Those were short-term injuries. They were able to come back about 10 minutes later, but they might not have had those 2 defensive backs, and they would have been down 3 starting defensive backs, including Talanoa Hufanga, plus Dre Greenlaw, who got hurt to start overtime. So I think that Kyle Shanahan just needed his defense to circle the wagons. He didn't want to throw his defense back out there, given the fact they were both tired and injured.
Man, that Dre Greenlaw injury, right? I mean, he just ran on the field, right, and he just dropped down, right? That's basically
he'd been dealing with Achilles tendonitis. He was on the injury report for that about two weeks prior, and it was something that he was maintaining, but obviously I think he was in the danger zone. It just shows you what these guys go through. I mean, these are long marathons of seasons. The 49ers played 20 games apiece in 2021 and 2022, and they're right up at that mark again here in 2023. Greenlaw, obviously an extremely physical player, a heartbeat of not only the defense, but this 49ers team, and it just gave way. It gave way as he was running out onto the field. Fred Warner said that he was in tears at halftime. Fred was, when he came back in and he saw Dre Greenlaw hobbled in the locker room, and they really wanted to go out and win the game for Dre Greenlaw. and they couldn't. And I think that, Rich, was one of the lasting scenes in my memory from being in that locker room after the Super Bowl. Obviously, nobody's even looking each other in the eye. It's one of those things where everybody's just staring off into space, but then you have Dre Greenlaw rolling through on crutches, and that to me just put the exclamation mark on how difficult it was for that team in that room at that time.
David Lombardi of The Athletic here on the Rich Eisen Show covers the 49ers. What are the orders of business now in the non-playing season for the
financial Tetris?
Yeah, that's it.
that's what they're starting with. Yeah. So here's how it's going to work for the 49ers. They've done such a good job over the course of the Shanahan Lynch era of staying under the salary cap while also paying A-list players. And the way that they've been able to do that is that they replace B-listers. They'll determine if you're an A-lister, and if you're an A-lister, that they'll pay you. That the 49ers have paid every single A-lister that they've drafted over the course of this regime. And I do think that Brandon Auk fits into that category. And what they've done is they've surfed a wave because the salary cap is increased every single season. So theoretically, you have a little bit more room every year to pay those A-listers. So obviously Auk is going to be at the top of the order of business, but you've got to figure out a way to replenish the margins of the roster. So you're definitely going to let some guys walk. And for that, they've got 11 picks in this 2024 draft. They finally reached the point where they're no longer deficient of picks following the big trade up in 2021 to try to get Trey Lance. So the draft is going to be immensely important for the 49ers this offseason. I think that, with those 11 picks, you can find a way to acquire cost-controlled talent, but also infuse this roster with youth that can help on special teams and can obviously fortify you for the long run when the cap really starts crunching for this team in 2025. But as of right now, you've got Brock Purdy still on that rookie contract. You can work around that. And, one interesting name to watch, because he, I think, really made a name for himself in the Super Bowl, is Jawan Jennings. He's going to be a restricted free agent. And that means that the 49ers are on the inside track to be able to keep him around. But to me, he caught a lot of eyes in the Super Bowl with his play, not just the throw for the touchdown. That was a cool play. He used to be a quarterback at Tennessee, but just for his toughness. And he's a central part of their identity as a team. And it's going to be interesting to me to see how much they do have to tender him in that restricted free agent process to keep him around. But these are the types of things that good football teams have to deal with in the offseason. You've got a lot of guys deserving of money, and obviously not everybody's going to be able to come back.
Yeah, Jennings had a shot at MVP of the Super Bowl.
There's no doubt about absolutely.
That. But what about paying Purdy? He's got 2 years left on that deal. They'll let him play year 3 so they can have the room when they play the financial Tetris, and then hit him up before year 4 and then play it out. What's the sense about that plan?
Well, yeah, they can't pay him right now, right, by rule. So that works obviously in the 49ers' favor, and then he's eligible for a contract extension after year 3. So you see how year 3 goes, and you go from there. But what I will say is that this is going to be Brock Purdy's first full offseason in an NFL program, because last year he was rehabbing from the elbow tear. He's already finished a season number 1 across the board in the efficiency metrics. He's gone toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes for 15 rounds. I think that, people had this discussion all season, and I think he kept on answering the bell when it mattered most. And he's on a very good track to be paid after year 3. It's just got to continue. The sample size isn't huge yet. It's just over a season big, but boy, the NFL is a league of moments and delivering at big moments. And obviously you're talking about Patrick Mahomes before this, he's delivered at the biggest moments for years now. I think that you look at Brock Purdy, he has answered the bell for the 49ers too. And the future's going to be promising for them as long as that's the case at the quarterback position.
David, thanks for the time, brother. Enjoy the non-playing season. We'll reach out to you as things progress. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
Right back at you. David Lombardi. Everyone should follow his coverage on The Athletic. He's got that whole thing buttoned up. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.